Mr. Regev, in many ways, amongst the tragedy and the horrors of the past 7 weeks since October the 7th, today was a moment of hope.
I agree. 13 Israelis have come out of Gaza. We only can guess at this stage what they went through. 6 elderly women over 70 and children, the youngest 2 years old, her older sister 4 years old, another girl 5 years old, and a young boy 9 years old, and their mothers. And I think we have to say here what needs to be said now. You will recall on Sky when you interviewed a leader of Hamas, he said, we only attacked military targets on October 7th. So here we have a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old released by Hamas. What does that say about the way we should understand Hamas's public statements?
Well, Mr. Regev, I think what we have seen, certainly our Sky teams from Khan Yunis in southern Gaza released those images of the Red Cross convoy bringing out those women, children, as you say, 2-year-old, 5-year-old, out of Gaza. And there was a moment where we saw Palestinian children as well cheering as that convoy left. And I suppose that shows you the difficulties and the challenges that the Palestinians have also suffered. But we don't want to sort of focus too much on what Hamas, of course, that is pivotal. But just if you can focus in this moment, what a huge moment it is for your country, because it has been a moment of pain and horror. They now have 13 children, women, the elderly, back on Israeli soil, back in the hands of Israeli officials and hopefully medics soon. And so this is a moment of real pause for both sides, because the images we saw were of Palestinian children standing in Khan Yunis cheering as that convoy left, because for them it's also respite.
So obviously, but let's be clear, we wouldn't have had this release unless Hamas felt it had to do so. And Hamas was under amazing pressure, and that pressure was ultimately from the military strikes by the IDF against its military machine and our ability to destroy its underground network of tunnels and to eliminate its senior command. And I think here there's an important lesson. Hamas are not suddenly humanitarians. They're only releasing hostages because they feel compelled to do so. And that's why we will continue the operation if they cease releasing hostages. You know, for 4 days, they've committed to release 50. We had 13 today. That's good. But they're still committed to releasing another 37. And if they want to extend this humanitarian cause, they can release more hostages and we'll agree to an extension. But Hamas will only do these steps.
So that's what I wanted to... that's what I wanted to get to, Mr. Regev, because, of course, this is for 4 days, and you would agree that today was, given the circumstances, a success. We saw the ceasefire kick in at 7 o'clock, and then we saw the hostages released later in the afternoon. And, of course, you have now released 39 Palestinian women and children. So,
can I argue, please?
Today,
Can I argue? Sorry, I can't let that stand, because it's like they release children and we release children. I'm sorry, don't accept that. Here we have a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 9-year-old. How can you compare that with a minor who is 16 or 17 years old, who is involved in a stabbing attack or throwing a petrol bomb or the other acts of violence? You can say women and minors, but to compare that to the Israeli 2-year-old, I think is a bridge too far.
Well, no, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Regev, and there is a 14-year-old who has been released as well. So
what for? What was his charge? What was his charge? Did you look?
I don't know exactly.
Did he stab someone, or did he knife them, or did he just carry explosives for someone else? Once again, you're talking about innocent, young toddlers against teenagers manipulated by different terrorist organizations, but nevertheless involved in violence. That's why they're in jail.
The point I was trying to make here is that the deal itself has been completed on day one successfully. These exchanges
Correct.
have happened, and they will continue if it goes in this way over the course of the 4 days. Now, you say, well, let's go back to what the Israeli Defense Minister said a little earlier today, that operations will continue beyond the 4 days. However, if things go the way they are, in terms of the exchanges like they have today over the course of the 4 days, Israel would be open then to continue this because, as you say, there are still over 200 hostages held in Hamas captivity in Gaza.
Correct. And we have said publicly that we will agree to the extension of the humanitarian pause if additional hostages are released. We said specifically, we will give you an extra day for 10 hostages, 2 extra days for another 10, 3 extra days for another 10. So the ball is in Hamas's court. We're ready to renew the military operation at the end of 4 days. But if Hamas wants the extension of the humanitarian pause, they know exactly what they need to do.
Mr. Regev, we have also had some reports, including from our camera operators inside Gaza, that there were some people who tried to move to northern Gaza to try and have a look at what's left of their homes or try and recover their dead, and they were shot at by the IDF. Have you got any sort of updates or information about that? Because we have teams on the ground who say that this took place.
So I'm not going into the particulars of the incident. All I can say is everything that we've done is in accordance with the understandings reached for the humanitarian pause. I'm 100% sure of that.
And so people can move around the Gaza Strip, they can go to the north, they can have a look at their possessions, their homes, and recover the dead?
I urge you to look very carefully what are the conditions placed in the humanitarian pause. We have no interest in seeing Hamas fighters return to the north.
But if families were to return, is that something that the IDF would facilitate?
Once again, you are presuming people want to voluntarily reform and that Hamas isn't putting fighters, human shields, that we've seen this strategy all along of Hamas embedding itself amongst a civilian population to bring its fighters, to bring its explosives. The conditions of the humanitarian pause are clear. Hamas knows it. They can't pretend to ignore it.
Mr. Regev, of course, countries like Qatar have been central in negotiating this deal and ensuring that everything goes according to plan alongside the United States and working with the Israelis, working with Hamas. But they have also been extremely critical of the operations that Israel has launched over the last 7 days. They say the humanitarian situation there is a crisis and it cannot continue. There will be international pressure that will mount. How will Israel respond to that?
Well, we are in favor of humanitarian support for the people of Gaza. We're not opposed. We're eager to facilitate it. And in fact, we've designated specific areas in the south of Gaza to the west of Khan Yunis, not one area, a number of areas where we believe there is not expected to be fighting. And we've urged the humanitarian organizations, the UN and the other ones, please set up facilities there because we know these are safer zones. And we urge people to go there. We want to see tents there. We want to see field hospitals there. Winter is approaching. We'd like to see the international organizations getting ready so that we don't have unnecessary suffering. The ball is in their court. We have specifically laid out areas in the southern part of the Gaza Strip where we don't expect there to be fighting. And that's the right place for the humanitarian effort. That's the right place for the civilians to go.
There is also fear in Gaza tonight, of course, because they worry, people in Gaza worry that after this 4-day truce, if there aren't any more negotiations done for hostage releases, the bombardment will continue.
That's why they should go to the humanitarian zones. They'll be safer there.
So you're asking people to move again after the 4 days if this truce doesn't get extended?
Well, first of all, that ball's in Hamas' court on that. That's very clear. Hamas has the ability to extend the humanitarian pause if that's their decision, right? I've been very clear about that. If Hamas decides not to extend, we will continue the campaign against Hamas, and our goal remains the same. We want all our hostages out, and we want to see the destruction of Hamas's military machine and a new reality in Gaza. We don't want to see the Gaza Strip ruled by this ruthless terrorist organization. And frankly, getting rid of Hamas isn't just good for Israel, it's good for the many Gazans who want a better life.